but I didn't know, when I went online, I found this man who was explaining this kind of complicated rhythm, the syncopation against the triplets. And the bottom line is he just sort of just does however he wants to do it. But I had two choices. One was in the key of F major, and it was in a key with several flats, and I figured the one with flat. But they basically were the same, just did different keys. I suppose if somebody sings it, they want a different key. So I just got this one. So now you just have to decide. You have to volunteer so we can do this because you wanted to do it in the fall. We're in the fall now.
Well, as long as the program can keep coming up with programs, I'm off the hook.
Oh, but we want to do this.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you have a perfect tempo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it seems to me. It should be. So I can do it anytime now that you want. You just have to let me know.
Or you can do it anytime that you want also. I will not be.
Oh, really? Well, maybe I'll do that then.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do it next week. And maybe we should put the words in and people can sing to it. I don't know. I didn't look at it. I don't get a page of words every part of that. Would it? Why would it be hard to say? October. Oh, we should maybe do it in October.
Good morning. Good day and welcome to today's worship service. We're grateful that you are here with us today. My name is Janet Coonsey. I'm the service coordinator for today here at All Souls Church, where our mission is to seek truth, practice love, and celebrate life. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been a member for a long time, you are welcome here. Whatever faith you have known or not known, or whatever your heritage, you are welcome here. Whatever questions you hold, whatever truths you seek, whatever sorrow you have known, whatever joy has filled your heart, whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. We have a few announcements today. You might have noticed the bulletin's kind of thick. First thing I wanted to bring to your attention, well, let me take a quick look here. There's a little form in here. If you want to know more about the church or UUism or are considering being a member, there's a little meeting being held on Sunday, September 15th after the morning service, or on Wednesday, September 18th at 7 p.m. So if you're interested in any of those things, this is the place to ask your questions. Also, we have on Thursday, September 12th this week, that's from 7 to 8:30, music meditation with Brian Lotman. He's a traveling monk, and he'll be doing a program. And also, Alan asked me if we could have someone host him, if anyone might be interested in that, because he's traveling and he depends on the goodwill of people. And so, if anyone would be interested in hosting him for a few nights, he is actually going to be in town from Tuesday to Friday. And if you are interested in that, please let me know. Also, he likes to camp out, so that's also a possibility. So thank you very much for considering that. And that's a free will donation for that event. Does anyone have any other announcements?
Good morning. I'm Liz, the current board president. We have a couple of things. Our next board meeting is this coming up Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. downstairs in Eliza's kitchen. And next Saturday at 8:30, we're also looking for people to come and volunteer to help clean up around the church or inside the church. Everybody's participation is greatly appreciated. And there's a circle dinner on the 19th at your house at 5:30, which is a Thursday. And please, the sign up for dishes are out. To bring a dish is out in the entryway. As also to sign up for the next circle dinner if you'd like to do that, host one of those dinners as well.
Good morning. My name's Eric. In the order of service, there will be a half sheet of paper that says, "Are you interested in UUism or becoming a member of All Souls Church?" Next Sunday after the church service or the following Wednesday night, there will be a short 1-hour meeting in the library in the back room on what is Unitarian Universalism, or how do you be a member of All Souls Church, or what does it mean? So if you're interested, the information's in your order of service. Thank you.
I happened to call Joy Hempel for something completely different, but she said that her husband was in the hospital and it was kind of sudden. So I think they might appreciate cards from people. So just so you know that.
Cheryl, do you know what hospital he's in?
He's in Avera. It's Paul Thompson. Her husband is Paul Thompson.
Hello. I don't think Arena is here today, but she is putting on a Translators of Culture cultures event on Friday. There'll be food and whatnot. The tickets are $55, but it's the 13th of September, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Willows at Willow Run Golf Course. So if you want to come to that, I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
Thank you all very much for sharing. And I also want to remind you that after today's service, there will be our usual coffee get-together downstairs, followed by a circle discussion up here with our speaker. So you get to ask questions about the message. And now we'll have our prelude. Thank you, Carol. And now at this time, we'll have our chalice lighting. From the fragmented world. From the fragmented world of our everyday lives, we gather together in search of wholeness. By many cares and preoccupations, by diverse and selfish aims, are we separated from one another and divided within ourselves. Yet we know that no branch is utterly severed from the tree of life that sustains us all. We cherish our oneness with those around us and the countless generations that have gone before us. We would hold fast to all of good we inherit, even as we would leave behind us the outworn and the false. We would escape from bondage to the ideas of our own day and from the delusions of our own fancy. Let us labor in hope for the dawning of a new day without hatred, violence, and injustice. Let us nurture the growth in our own lives of the love that has shone in the lives of the greatest of men and women, the rays of whose lamps still illumine our way. In this spirit we gather, in this spirit we pray. Now our first song is going to be for the fruit of all creation, which is, words are on the insert, but the tune is number 409. So we'll go with the insert, and those of you who read music, we're not going to have that today for this one. And now we have our first reading, which is in your insert, and let's do that together. Praying. Haven't found that one? Okay. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention, then patch a few words together, and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contrast, but the doorway into thanks and a silence which another voice may speak. And at this time, we'll have a story for all ages. the children would come on up. We'll have a story for everybody. Come on up. Sit on the floor or the chairs, whichever makes you feel comfortable. Okay. I found this book yesterday and I thought it might be helpful for some of you, maybe not. But sometimes you're sad and you want to cry, or sometimes you want to cry for no reason at all. Sometimes you just get disappointed in something. I know the older children are going to school and they're going to miss summer break. Have you ever been sad? Yeah, sometimes we're sad. But this story is if you cry like a fountain. Nice fountain, isn't it? Let's see if I can read this and still let you see the pictures. Hey, we can't start this book like this with that sad face. You need to smile at least at the beginning. Otherwise, everyone will think that you're sad and they'll worry. No, come on, please don't cry. Hold back those tears. Try thinking of something happy in 1, 2, 3, and there's the worm crying. Oh no, this is a real disaster. Hold on a second, or else you're going to create a flood. Yes, he certainly isn't. He's creating a flood. See what I mean? If you don't stop, you'll drown. Do you feel better now? Yes, says the little worm. Good, because there's no use in crying. What do you mean there's no use? Oh dear.
That was crying.
He's still crying.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to cry. Oh no, what did I say? What I meant is that there are so many reasons for crying, but you have to cry better. Cry better? Yes, for example, if you cry like a fountain, you'll be surrounded by friends and make all the pigeons happy. It's a multi-tiered fountain, so the tears just keep flowing down and creating new ponds. If you feel sad around lunchtime, turn on the stove and cry until the pot is filled.
That is that.
What's that?
I don't know.
Oh, it's some sort of big fish. When your tears start to boil, stir in the pasta. You won't even need to add salt. If you ever cry in the living room, just add a little cleaner, and your floors will shine. Crying helps improve your personal hygiene. And our crier is putting it on the toothpaste now. And your dogs too. You could wash your dogs with your tears. If that isn't enough, crying can be done in every season. If you cry in the winter, you can skate on your iced tears. If you cry in the spring, you can help the flowers bloom. The wonderful thing is that you can cry on any occasion, even on your birthday. It's a great way to put out the candles. Okay, if you aren't convinced yet, check this out. With 2 cups of tears and 1 cup of flour, you can make homemade Play-Doh. That might cheer you up a little. And then you can make surprise presents for your friends. And here they're giving out their gifts. Crying also helps put out small fires, and sometimes even big ones. And the worms helping them out by being a hose. You like that?
Fires are big.
That's a big one with a fire truck there.
That's a tiny fire.
There's our tiny one over here.
Yeah. And this is a tiny fire too.
Ah, yes, okay. Everyone cries. Police officers, superheroes, kings, soccer players, ants, stars, dogs, peas, even rocks. Rocks? Yes, though no one has ever seen a rock cry because they're very good at hiding. Ah, I didn't know that. There's really no downside to crying. It's a universal language. It works better than words. If you ever happen to cry when you're far from home, don't worry, you'll be understood. Without crying, frogs would explode. Clouds would keep growing bigger and bigger and would make farmers angry. Crying helps pears grow. With pears, you can make jam. Isn't that wonderful? You're sorry that the book is about to end? Me too, but don't worry. That's life. Books always end, just like everything else. Hey, he's still crying. Because sometimes you just need to cry. There's never an end to tears or to swimming pools. So there we go today. So you go ahead and cry if you need to, and you can make it be a good thing. It can be a good thing. Okay, let's send the children out. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. In this congregation, we've found it helpful to share the ups and downs of our lives by the practice of taking a stone from a bowl, holding it in our hand, warming it, and expressing our thoughts of joy and or concern, and then placing the stone in the water so that the ripples of the water carry our joys and concerns out into the wider world. I'll begin to taking one stone to express a little concern about Paul being in the hospital, Paul Thompson. I just learned about that this morning too. And so we set the stone into the water where the ripples ripple out to our whole community here. So, if anybody is ready to share a joy or concern, please come forward.
Well, I have two things. One of them is a joy, because it's always in question when you get to be my age whether you're going to get there or not. And on Wednesday I turned 73, which is a good thing, I think. And, my family is happy. My daughter sent me a cushion upon which to rest tablets. Put it on your lap, and she said, this is for you to be more comfortable when you hold your tablets. Anyway, there is also a mixed blessing, and tomorrow I am having what's called a radio frequency ablation, and they stick needles in the bottom of my back and shoot microwave radiation into the facet nerves. Now, this sounds very painful, and it is at first, but over time, I get less pain, and it's a good thing. Now, I had it done to my neck about 8 weeks ago, and I did get some relief, but in time, I'll get more and more and more relief. So it's a good thing, see? And I'm very happy to be here today. My name is Chuck. I'm a member of this congregation, and I'd like everyone to greet me for my birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Joy 73, you only get it once.
Edie Ann Hafke. I'd like to first of all send my thoughts and prayers to a friend's boyfriend's dad who's in the hospital right now and is in the last part of his cancer treatment, and hopefully he will get some relief and be able to go in the other world in a good way. And I also want to think about another friend who's needing to think about getting some treatment for his heart and his mouth, and hope that those things will line up for him, and hope for good luck with him and stuff. Thank you.
My name's Eric, and this isn't a joy. It's not a concern, but it's just an observation of a passage. A friend of All Souls Church, David Johnson, from about 20 years ago, passed on a couple of weeks ago, and all I can think is that he's off to his next great adventure after having a wonderful life.
Hi, I'm Scott. I've been here for a few days. You know, I've been a farmer for my whole childhood, and I did a lot of things with a lot of different animals. But I gotta tell you, it wasn't until this week that I ever herded turkeys with a lawnmower. Turkeys with a lawnmower. And I am presently looking for a new position to work, and I'm beginning to get the phase where people start saying no to me. It's hard on the ego. It feels sad. So I have to process all that too.
My name's Susan, and I have a joy that my 4-year-old is finally out of the hospital after 2 different visits. We got out and we went back in, but she's doing better. She's finally off all of her medications, so she's almost healed. Her incision's almost all closed up. And then my grandmother that had just finished her chemo. We're gonna hope for the best. She just got some tests back, and it has spread into other parts of her body. So, yeah.
put one last stone in for all the joys, concerns, and other things that are in our hearts but haven't been expressed. We'll bet this will be for them. Now let's take a moment of silence just to think on these things that we've heard. All right, let's move on to our second song. It'll be number 85, Although This Life is But a Wraith, and again, it's to a different tune, so keep that in mind. Our second reading is number 586. And we will read that antiphonally. I'll keep reading with you just to make it show up on the recording. It's the idea of democracy. As labor is the common burden of our race, so the effort of some to shift their share of the burden onto the shoulders of others is the great, durable cause of the race. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. Our reliance is in our love for liberty. Our defense is in the spirit which prizes liberty as the heritage of all people in all lands everywhere. Destroy this spirit, and we have planted the seeds of despotism at our own doors. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves and cannot long retain it. Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? Let us have faith that right makes might, and in that faith, let us to the end to do our duty as we understand it. Thank you. And at this time, we'll be having our message, 8 years in the South Dakota State Senate with Reynold, Nesiba.
Thank you, Janet. And as a Democrat serving in the South Dakota legislature, I presume you picked that book especially for me about crying. So thank you. It did resonate. So thank you. And kids aren't here to hear it, but it's okay for all of us to cry. So I'm going to divide my comments this morning, and I'm going to bring my phone out and set a timer here, maybe for myself as well, to try and keep myself on task. If I can figure out how to do that. Or maybe I'll let my wife do that. Great. So I am Reynold Nesiba, state senator from District 15. I'm so happy to see Senator Bolin, my friend who is here from Canton. And Senator Bolin, I wasn't sure if he was going to make it here this morning or not, but he's so important to my story in Pierre. I went up to the legislature in 2015. We had just passed that measure to increase the minimum wage, and he was working on a sub-minimum wage, and he so upset me. The very first time I ever met him, I was in his face, and I had my fingers on his lapel, and he so upset me that he inspired me to run for the legislature. And it's one of those where we've become friends. I talk with Senator Bolin as often as I talk to him more often than I talk to members of my own caucus, in fact. So it is one of those. I'm grateful. My overriding emotion today is one of gratitude, and I have great gratitude to Senator Bolin for helping me understand how people who disagree with me, we both say it often, we've agreed to disagree and not be disagreeable. So a round of applause, actually, for Senator Bolin. Thank you for helping me learn that. I want to say a few words about this. I'm grateful to Ellen Sogstad, who I've been friends with for a long time, for asking me to reflect on this experience. And it's been a useful exercise to think back over why I ran for the legislature in the first place and what we've accomplished collectively and what I've accomplished or failed to accomplish as an individual legislator. So my remarks this morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about my political history. I want to talk a little bit about the changes that happened when Governor Noem got elected and the transition from Governor Dugard to Governor Noem. And then I want to talk a little bit about what Senator Bolin and the rest of us have accomplished in the last 8 years. And then I want to talk a little bit about the 100 bills or so that I've introduced over the last 8 years, and I'd like to talk about each of them in detail. So I'll try to keep an eye on the time. So I moved here in 1995 to be a professor at Augustana University. I'm beginning my 30th year of teaching economics there, and I'm still excited about going to work every day and trying to connect with young people and talk about economics, and not just about economics, but if you don't like the way the world is, how do you create positive social change? So that's one of the themes I'm working on this year in my courses, of trying to just figure out how do you teach civic engagement. So in 1997, Thelma Underberg, I don't know if anybody remembers Thelma or not, but she asked me to give a talk to a coalition of women about inequality. And then a woman named Mary Lou Mahan asked me to give a similar talk about wealth and income inequality to South Dakota, to the Democratic Forum. And that was the first time I ever gave a talk where people applauded in the middle of it. They don't applaud in my classroom at Augustana. So that sort of pulled me into to Democratic, at least following what was going on. A student at Augustana asked me to chair the Minnehaha County Democratic Party back in 2002, and so many of us like to think that we played an important role in helping Tim Johnson beat John Thune in that particular race by just a few hundred votes back in 2002. In 2003, my friend Kathy Brechtelsbauer and some others in the basement of St. Mark's Lutheran Church started talking about the immorality of taxing food, that it's just wrong that people have to pay a tax before they can, buy a bottle of milk or be able to buy some beef or bread. And I was a part of that campaign in 2004, Now it's 2024, and all of the 8 years I was there, I had a bill to, or someone in my caucus carried the bill to repeal the sales tax on food. We have another chance to vote on that yet in November. I saw Ron Williamson last night at Levitt, and talked to him for a little bit, because it was Ron Williamson in 2004 that first invited me to the state capitol, and he invited me up as an economist, actually, to talk about the sales tax on food and why it was regressive, and I gave this great testimony, and was widely ignored, really, right? The committee went on to vote, and now 20 years later, I'm understanding how hard it is to untax food, but that is something that I have an abiding commitment to. So regardless of what happens in November, I hope we fix this in November, but if not, it's worth continuing to work on. In 2006, I was upset by our then Governor Rounds, who was using our state airplane for personal and political benefit. We put a little measure on the ballot to clip his wings that did pass, and I think it really did rein in Governor Rounds and Governor Dugard. But Governor Noma's decided that everything she does is state business, and so it doesn't really apply to her. In 2010, I ran for county commission. Some of you maybe voted for me. I came in 6 of 6 in that race. I think I spent more than anybody else, so that was a great learning experience. In 2014, I worked on that minimum wage campaign, both doing some writing and research and helping get that on the ballot, and glad that that's done. It's too low, and we could have dreamed bigger, but we just didn't have the money for the campaign. If you might remember, in 2014, it was on the ballot to raise it from $7.25 to $8.50, but we did index it to inflation, so it goes up every year, and we did raise the tip minimum wage to 1/2 of the minimum wage, so that's a lot better here than the $2.01 it still is at the federal level for the tip minimum wage. And then 2016, I accomplished probably the biggest thing that I'll ever accomplish in South Dakota politics, is working with Steve Hickey and Steve Hildebrand. And we ended payday lending in South Dakota. And that was a great accomplishment to run those folks out of town. And it's great that Badlands Pond has now become the military alliance. And that was some of the first advice I ever got was never get married to a bill. And in 2015, I actually bought a townhome across from Dollar Loan Center. Remember where that used to be before the Black Hills Credit Union was there? I was so committed to it. I bought a townhome across the street from Dollar Loan Center so I could always see Chuck Brennan, and Chuck Brennan would know where to find me if he needed to. So it was there. I could look out my kitchen window and I could see the open sign as a little inspiration every day. I was so happy when that sign was finally shut off. So that was great. And it was also in 2016 that I ran for the state senate. In part, I wanted to make sure that if it passed, that I knew that payday lenders would not give up. And there were in 17 and 18 bills that were trying to allow payday lenders back into town and back into the state, and was able to fend those off. And then I've been serving in Pierre for those last 8 years. The reason I ran, one was to keep the payday lenders out, and the second was to really protect the initiated measure and referendum process. And I must say I mostly have lost on that second one, that there has been an erosion. The kind of campaign that Steve Hickey, Steve Hildebrand, and I ran in 2016 would be really hard to run today. That it has, I think the measures that we've passed have been trying to say we want to keep out of-state money, but I think what we've achieved actually is we've created a system where unless you can raise $1 million from out of state, it's really hard to be able to put anything on the ballot. I think we've made it less of a grassroots organization to now bringing in professionals to be able to get things done. So that's why I got into the legislature, and that. Back in the old days, when I first got there, how many of you have been to our state capitol? Just curious. Yeah, a few of you. Back in 2017 and 18, all the doors were open. You could walk in anywhere. And at some point, there was a push for a measure to allow people with guns to be able to be in the building. And so that bill did pass. And then right after that, we had to lock all the doors and put in metal detectors, and made it a far less accessible building. And maybe it should have been done. There have been some security threats, and if you're on the Senate floor or the House floor, it does sort of feel like you're in a fishbowl of sorts. But that's one of the things that really has changed, that where you used to be able to walk in, you now have to go in as a visitor. You come in the north door, you have to go through security. And not only do you go through security, but you're subjected to a big screen TV that's always on Fox News. You know, it could be South Dakota Public Broadcasting, but it's not, because they want to tell you, sort of welcome you to the kind of thinking that's there. So it's always Fox News that's going on. My first 2 years in Pierre, Dennis Dugard was our governor. I never once voted for the man, but as soon as he was gone, I really missed him, because there was a kind of collegiality that happened there. My first 6 years in Pierre, I served on the Appropriations Committee, and Governor Dugard used to have Republicans and Democrats from the Appropriations Committee, leadership of both parties, his Bureau of Finance and Management, and the LRC financial staff. We'd get together, have a beer, have dinner, talk about the revenue forecast that was coming up for the next year. And so it was good for the staff to be able to have a conversation, to understand what numbers other people were putting forward. There was just a kind of collegiality and bipartisanship that as soon as Governor Noem was elected, those dinners never happened. At least if they did happen, they didn't happen with Democrats. And my sense is they didn't happen with Republicans either. And that is something that was lost, and I'm hoping that when we do have a different governor, that kind of collegiality and bipartisanship is something that can be brought back. Governor Noem has invited Democratic legislators to oftentimes to at least having breakfast before the budget address. And Dennis Dugard used to also do that with the State of the State. Governor Noem now sometimes invites us to a soiree at the mansion that involves other folks that are mostly Republicans, to sort of hear a preview of the State of the State. But that kind of collegiality is something that I hope that legislators and governors can work on, and bringing that collegiality back. Third thing, so I wanted to talk a little bit about my history, a little bit about broad changes. Third thing, I just want to talk a little bit about legislative accomplishments broadly. So Senator Bolin and I have both been there. Our terms have overlapped for the last 8 years. And when I just reflect back on what I think will be the most influential things, I think one of the most important things we did was pass the Freedom Scholarship. So the Freedom Scholarship, South Dakota is one of the last states in the country to have a needs-based financial aid for our college students. It applies both at public and private universities. Most states do this with an annual appropriation. South Dakota still has a trust fund that does give out a little bit that most legislators have forgotten about, but it's been there for a while. But our main fund was $50 million that got combined with $150 million of private funds that's managed now by the South Dakota Community Foundation that provides scholarships and makes college more accessible, both to college students and to technical colleges. And it's an important, just making college more affordable. A second thing that we've done is that I've lost track of how many years, but it's maybe 4 years or 5 years that we've been able to freeze tuition at our universities and our technical colleges. We were among the most expensive in the region on that, and just simply being able to hold the line on that by providing funds to the universities and technical colleges so they didn't have to fund their own pay raises internally. And the only thing they could do was raise tuition to be able to do that. We did estimates of how much money they needed to be able to pass on those raises to meet the state wage guideline. And that's been a great thing for higher education in South Dakota as well. And along the way, we increased the amount of benefit for the South Dakota Opportunity Scholarship. We've built more buildings in the last 8 years on our university campuses than I can keep track of. The ADRDL at SDSU, a precision agriculture building at SDSU, and taking down old buildings at USD, and a variety of other things. And then part of this last few years since the COVID emergency is that South Dakota has received billions of dollars in federal aid, both from the Trump administration and from the Biden administration. We've set aside $700 million for water and wastewater projects I mean, it's like once in a generation investment that we've been able to do for that kind of infrastructure. We set aside 200, and that was all federal, that was all Biden dollars, Biden bucks. 200 million for affordable housing, 50 million of that was Biden dollars. But again, housing is an ongoing problem across the state of South Dakota, and that investment is an important one as well. We spent over $100 million on broadband, trying to make sure that everybody in South Dakota has access to a high-speed internet connection. We've made great strides on that. Some of that is federal money, but some of that was general fund money as well. And again, we've been beneficiaries of federal money that's allowing us to put up a new state health lab, a new Lincoln Hall at Northern State University, and a variety of other things that I think are going to be really important. In my closing, I have about 5 minutes left. I'll say a few words about things that I'm most proud of, and maybe I'll just highlight a couple of my individual bills. One of the bills that took me a couple of years to pass, and it might seem like a small thing, but I've heard from people that it's been really deeply helpful to them, is back in 2020, I helped us end prohibited the denial of benefits based on a felony. I don't know if anybody been to the women's prison to visit in Pierre? If you ever visit our women's prison, you walk in the place and it's kind of like visiting a daycare facility because it's full of people who are of childbearing age. There's a lot of moms that we have in prison, and they're going to get out, and we really want them to stay out. And so I was able to pass a bill that allowed us, that people getting out of prison for a drug charge would be able to get cash welfare assistance to combine with whatever else they need to be able to get over their alcohol or drug addiction and to stay out of our prison system. We want them to work. We want them to raise their family. We don't want to be spending $30,000 or $40,000 a year keeping them incarcerated. And I think that was the argument that won, that this wasn't just a way to reunify families and help people be all they can be, but it actually saves the state money as well. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of a bill in 2019 that attributes campaign contributions by certain minors to their parents. I was upset that Mayor Tenhaken had somebody that just kept writing $1,000 checks. There was a check from the donor, and then from his wife, and then from the 3 minor children, all from the same checkbook with just the child's name in the memo. Like, not cool. Like, this is not okay. It was an article written by John Holt, who was at the Argus, and it was like, we can fix this. And it was fun to watch some of my Republican people who disagreed with me argue about that one. But let me just talk about a couple of other things that I'm really proud of that my name isn't on, but I think I played a role in. It took me 3 years, but I had a bill that said that we should allow driver's license applications and the written exam in Spanish. And that was driven by Latino folks in District 15, but also by the Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. Like, this was becoming a business problem. They had people that they wanted to hand the keys to of their, construction vehicle, but they couldn't because they didn't have a South Dakota driver's license. So it took 3 tries, and on the 3rd try, I finally went up to my friend VJ Smith from Brookings and said, VJ, we got this out of the Senate last year, but the Nesiba name, they're never going to pass that in the House. I need you to put your name on this, and I'm going to go ask Jess Olson from Rapid City, a Republican, and we're going to make this a Republican bill, and we're going to get this thing done. And we did. So, and the Sioux Falls Chamber actually won an award for their campaign in helping making that happen. I was glad I was a part of that. Second thing, I had a bill to have 100% tuition scholarships for our active duty Guard members. I brought that forward. The General Millett at the time said, you know what, we're doing a pilot on that other places, why don't we wait? Next year, Governor Noem had a bill to do exactly that, cutting out private schools. So that bill passed. I didn't complain because they assured me that the next year we would bring back a bill and include private schools, private universities in that as well. And then General Millett retired, and we got a new general, but we did get that fixed this year, and I stayed quiet the entire time and just let it get done. And so I'm glad that happened. I had the first Juneteenth holiday bill back in 2022, and then I'm glad that President Biden and the U.S. Congress made that a federal holiday. And then Governor Noem brought a bill. It was poorly written in the end. It got revised, basically be word for word of the bill that I had 2 years earlier, and we made Juneteenth a South Dakota holiday. And sometimes, again, the best that a Democrat can do in South Dakota is bring a bill and then withdraw it. So I brought a bill that would extend postpartum care for moms who give birth on Medicaid. The old rules are that you were only, it was either 60 days or 90 days, and then you were cut off. And around the country, people were extending it to a year. And at one of those breakfasts with Governor Noem, I said, this is a great idea. This is consistent with your values of wanting to take care of South Dakota families. You should take this away from me. I said, I have a bill, but you can do it unilaterally. You can apply for a waiver and do this. And the day that my bill was coming up in committee, a staffer came from the governor. Congregations and in society at large is an important part of this. So representative democracy is not a spectator sport, and I hope that you are all registered to vote and will actively participate this coming election. Early voting begins September 20th. September 20th. Thank you.
And at this time, we'll have our offering. Now let's say the words to receive the offering. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. And our final song is number 400, Shalom Havarim. And what you're singing here is goodbye. Shalom can be hello, goodbye, or peace. So in this context, goodbye, my friend, goodbye, my friend, goodbye, goodbye, until we meet again, goodbye, goodbye. To extinguish the chalice, have a little help here. And together, the chalice is extinguished, but the light goes with us out into the world.